My job at the Old Vic is as sound designer for the production, so which means when a new production's coming together, the producers have already gone to the director and they've decided what show they're going to do. It's then part of the director's brief to then assemble a creative team, and I'm one of those members. So the sound designer comes in, works with the director to use whatever sounds needed to bring the production alive. So it's another tool in the director's kit of parts to put a show onto stage. So along with the lighting designer, scenic designer, or sometimes costume designer, fight choreographer or choreographers, we then all assemble at the very beginning of rehearsal, sometimes earlier, and talk about how we're going to do the production and what the director wants in the production, and we start from there. The relationship between sound design and director varies project to project. Obviously there's always a first time you work with a director, but the more you work with a director, the easier it becomes to understand what they want and understand their language, and try and understand what form of theatre that director's trying to achieve. It gives you as well as forming a long-term personal relationship, it gives you a shortcut in communicating with them. So actually getting to know the director and getting on with the director is pretty key to the way in which I like to work. I tend to work with directors I've worked with repeatedly for quite a long time. But obviously when I first started, you work with lots of different directors, and then there are certain directors which just invite you back time after time to work with. But I find it pretty key having a close working relationship with the director, but also the other members of the creative team. The people that are key to what I do vary from project to project really. On a big, large-scale musical, the relationship between director and designer is always key. I mean, that's a kind of constant in every project. On a large-scale musical, the people you're most on a day-to-day basis is your operator, is fundamental, and the relationship between sound designer and operator is always really key on a big musical event. Your relationship with the musical supervisor and or composer, sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're split, is again really key. And on those big events, we have a production engineer. So on a big event, the operator will just be in charge of operating the show, and the production engineer is in charge of taking my design work, my technical designs and drawings, and actually physically putting them into the theatre. So he's like a kind of project manager for the sound, like a chief electrician would do for lighting, or a production electrician would do for lighting. Working in straight drama is slightly different because quite often, particularly places here, we won't have a dedicated sound operator. You're working with the deputy stage manager who will be operating the show. The DSM is a key role, particularly in straight drama, because you're often not in rehearsal and they are, so you need to know what's going on in rehearsal. So I get one version from the director, and then I get a very clear, accurate version from the DSM. So I get lots of ideas from the director, but the deputy stage manager in rehearsal will often give me very clear what's happening, where it's happening, if a telephone's ringing, how many times it rings, and what the spacing should be. So relationship with the DSM is always really key. And again, the relationship with your production manager is also vital. If you're going to get anything done, you need to have a great relationship with your production manager. One of the things I learnt really early on is theatre is completely collaborative. There's no room to not really get on with anybody. You have to form great relationships with everybody. Everybody's always tired, everybody's very stressed, the hours are very long. So if you're difficult and can't get on with people, it's a really grim place to work. As sound designer starting out, and I think before I'd really embarked on becoming a sound designer but knew I wanted to work in the theatre, I wish I'd been to see more theatre shows. I wish I'd seen more diverse theatre shows, not just coming to see shows in the West End or at the National or the RSC, but to see more street theatre or see more performance art, in order to kind of broaden what I knew about theatrical form.